Hello students, welcome to this Frames 5 video tutorial on Pong. Please open Frames 5 from your application screen. Let's do an initial save. Let's go up to File and let's find Save As. Now remember, when you save anything, you are saving to your student number. So you're going to click the down arrow and look for your student number next to the little gray box. Okay? For file name, I want you to call the file name Pong, P-O-N-G. Save. Okay, so what we're going to try to do in this animation is we're going to try to do a very simplified version of Pong. Now, it's not going to be exactly like Pong, but so many video games have been created that use this kind of mechanics. Okay, so let's start with our paddle. So on the right hand side in the Tools panel, I want you to click on Shape, add a shape to the frame, and then I want you to choose the rectangle shape. Now we have control of how thick the line is and what color it's going to be. So first, let's keep the stroke color black. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to create a rectangle at the bottom that's going to represent our paddle. Now it's going to be floating slightly above the bottom edge of the frame. We don't want the line to be too thick, but we don't want the line to be too thin either. So you can experiment by moving this slider. We don't want it too thick like that, and we don't want it super thin where we can't see it. So I'm going to leave it right about there. And then what you can do is you can choose the color. Let's keep it a solid color. Let's make sure that the fill box is checked. And let's create a color. Now you can choose any color you wish. I'm just going to choose a nice dark blue. Okay? If you want to have a shadow, you can have a shadow here, which looks pretty cool. Or we can go without the shadow. Okay? If you don't want the shadow, you can just check this off. Alright, so the other element to the Pong game is basically just two things. We have a paddle, which is our man, which we can move, and then we have the ball, which is moving at random kind of directions. So let's create the ball. So let's go back to the tool panel on the right hand side. Let's click the shape tool again, and let's click the circle. And towards the top of the screen, let's draw a circle about the size, a little bit bigger than a dime, or maybe it's the size of a nickel. Okay? Alright, we're going to keep the stroke width the same width, and we're going to keep the color black. But what we're going to do is we're going to create just a little bit of an effect inside the ball. So from fill, let's change it to radial gradient. And then what I want you to do is I want you to pick two colors that you like, that you think would go well together. So I'm going to choose light orange and a bright pink. Again, you want the ball to stand out a little bit from your paddle. And then to make it a little bit more interesting, I could click on the center circle here, and I can just move the position of the gradient so that the gradient is not completely centered. And then if I click off of it, I can have a look at it, just to create something that's a little bit different. Okay, so we're ready to go. We've got everything set up. Okay, so what we're going to do to help us, actually, before we do anything, let's go up, let's click Save. Now remember, you save this file as Pong. It shows at the top here. Alright, make sure that neither the ball or the paddle is selected. In other words, everything is deselected. You could click here in the middle of the frame. And then let's go to the top toolbar and click Duplicate. Now we wanted to make sure that nothing was highlighted, because if the ball was highlighted and we click duplicate, it would only duplicate the ball. So that's why we had to deselect. So let's duplicate. And then you can see down here in the timeline that we've got a complete copy of the first frame. Okay. So let's go back to the first frame. And what we're going to do is we're going to create like a path that's going to help us keep this ball aligned. So let's go back to the shape tool, and let's click this arrow head here, this arrow. Let's make the width quite thin. And we don't worry about what color it is because we're going to erase it later. Okay, so remember we're on the first frame. I want you to start your arrowhead right in the center of that ball, and I want you to create a diagonal path down to the bottom of the frame. So this is where the ball is going to move. And then of course our goal, if we were playing the video game, is to move our paddle or our man so that it can bump or rebound the ball back up. Okay. So let's deselect. Okay. So we actually don't need this frame. So what we're going to do is on the second frame, I kind of made a mistake here. That's okay. Let's click on the second frame and hit delete. All right, so now we have only one frame with the path. We have the ball, the paddle, and the path. All right, so make sure you've deselected everything. Now let's duplicate again. This is going to be much easier. Okay, let's go up to View from the pull-down menu at the top. Go to View and go down and let's turn on our onion skin. All right, now because we're on the second frame, I want you to move the ball down the path of that arrow. And I want you to move it so that it's still overlapping the first ball, but just by a bit here. It's almost like we've created like a mini Venn diagram there. And I want you to remember this overlap because we're going to try to keep things consistent with the same overlap. All right, so let's deselect. And now let's duplicate the whole frame. Remember, onion skin is still turned on. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the ball down the path. And we're going to try to keep that consistent overlap here so that the ball is moving at a consistent speed. Okay, when you've got the positioning right, deselect, and then let's click duplicate. All right, let's move the ball down. Try to keep that overlap consistent. Try to keep it centered on that path line. Deselect and duplicate. So let's pull the ball down on the next frame. Keep it centered on that line. Have that consistent overlap. Deselect and duplicate. Let's do the same thing. It gets very repetitive, but that's okay. Okay, it's nice to know what you're doing. All right, let's duplicate. Keep that consistent motion. Okay, make sure you deselect after every movement. All right, let's duplicate. Let's move the ball down. Okay, let's duplicate. Deselect, duplicate. Now again, we're not worried about how many frames we create. In fact, the more frames you create, the smoother your animation. The less you move objects, the smoother the animation. All right, duplicate. Duplicate. Now you should be getting close to where the paddle is going to be pretty soon. Okay? So I'm actually just going to stop there and see where it's going to hit the paddle. Okay. All right, let's go back to the first frame. And let's just press play. Let's see what's happening here. We have the ball moving down the path. Pretty smooth. Looks pretty good. Okay, so let's hit save here at this point. Okay, so if you've ever played a game like this, either on your phone or on a video game console system, you know that the whole object, again, as I said, is you're trying to move your paddle so that it meets the ball. So at some point here, once you see, let's go back to frame 1. Once you see the direction of the ball, you as the player are going to anticipate where the ball is going to be. So what I'm going to do is from frame 5 or 4, it doesn't matter. The whole point is that I'm leaving a little bit of lag so that I can realize where the ball is going. You're not just going to move the paddle randomly as soon as the ball is moving. You're going to kind of predict where that ball is going to end up. So I'm going to start on frame 5. Remember, my onion skin is still on. Okay, if you need to check, go to View and make sure that the onion skin is still turned on. Okay, so in frame 5, I'm going to start moving my paddle in anticipation of where I think the ball is going to end up. Now at first, I may be very cautious and I may move my paddle only a little bit. Alright, so let's click on the next frame. And because the onion skin is there, it shows you where the paddle was in the previous frame. So I'm just going to move it cautiously at first. And then I'm going to go to the next frame. Try to keep it all the same line, because in the game Pong, or any of these games, you don't really have the option to go up very much. Alright, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep moving my paddle, trying to anticipate where that ball is going to end up. Keep going, keep working through your frames, keep moving it at a consistent rate. Eventually, I'm going to get the paddle sitting right under the ball. Okay, so this is the last frame that I've created. You can see that in the next frame, the ball is in fact going to strike the paddle. Okay, so let's make sure we deselect. We haven't created a new frame in a while, so let's duplicate. Now let's move the ball down so that it makes contact with the paddle. Now if you have to move the ball a little bit farther or a little shorter than you normally would, that's okay. So I actually have to move my ball just a few millimeters longer. Now I don't really have to move the paddle because it's hitting the paddle already. You can move the paddle in that same motion, okay? Or you can adjust and move the paddle back. It doesn't matter. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've done. So let's click on frame 1. Let's turn off the onion skin. And then let's press play. So you can see the paddle is moving to where the ball is going to meet it. Excellent. Okay, I just want to make sure that the paddle travels in a straight line here. So it looked like my paddle was actually going a little bit lower each time, but maybe not. Maybe it's okay. Again, as an animator, you always have to be checking these things, keeping things consistent. Okay, I actually like how that looks. So let's go up to View, let's turn off the onion skin, and let's save. This concludes this Frames 5 video tutorial on Pong 1. Please continue on with the next tutorial without calling Mr. Ueda over. Thanks for watching. Bye.